Take this!
Alright, so to kind of show you guys how we play the build here, what we usually do is we throw down an Orb of Storms, and then we start spamming our control rods. Every once in a while, we'll shoot a lightning arrow and a Stormcaller arrow out in order to electrocute and to shock the enemies. But our main damage dealer is going to be the control rod, combined with the lightning or the Orb of Storms in order to set the control rods off. So you can see here, it's capable of doing quite a bit of damage. We're on a tier 13 map right now. So the monster level is currently level 78. And yeah. So basically our lightning arrows, you can see here, we're going to be able to shock enemies with them, with our lightning arrows. Our Stormcaller arrow we're going to be using as our main way of... I'm sorry, I said shock. I meant electrocute enemies with our lightning arrows. Our Stormcaller arrow currently is set up to be our main way of shocking enemies. So you can see here they're getting shocked from our Stormcaller. And then, like I said, our our lightning rods and our Orb of Storm is going to be our main damage dealer. So that's the build I'm going to be showing you guys today, and the reason I put this build together is not to be a meta build, it's not to be the best build in the game. I did it because I think it's extremely fun to play. One of the downsides I will mention is, because there are so many visual effects coming off of the lightning rods, sometimes it's a little hard to see the ground effects, so you may just randomly blow up and never have seen the effect that's going to be killing you because there is so much visual clutter on the screen. In fact, there's so much you can see right now, the game's actually starting to cull it out because there's so many effects happening. So just something to keep in mind, that it is a little bit hard to see what's happening on the screen sometimes because of this build. So be prepared to die at random if you go this build. Okay, so let's take a look at the gem setups that I currently have for my skills. Now, something to keep in mind, what I've done here is I've put the most important gems to the left and the least important gems to the right. So this way, depending on how many sockets you have unlocked, just kind of prioritize the ones that I have listed more to the left than the ones to the right as you're leveling and getting your gems upgraded. So for the standard bow shot, I do actually have some gems thrown on here. I have Envenom, Life Thief to steal attack or to steal life, Pin to pin enemies. So this is just in case for some reason if we run out of mana, we need to get some life and mana back, we can just use our regular bow attack on an enemy. So I do have some stuff thrown on there just in case. So our main damage dealer here is going to be Lightning Rod. And on this we have Scatter Shot, which is going to give us 2 extra projectiles. Primal Armament to increase our damage. Magnified Effect is going to increase the area of effect that this has, which will make it easier for these to overlap and also hit larger AoEs on mobs. For the next gem, we have Lightning Infusion to increase our lightning damage, and for the final gem, we have more elemental damage, but we can no longer inflict elemental ailments. If you still want your lightning rods to be able to possibly shock or cause other ailments, you could always swap this gem out for something else. Next up is going to be our lightning arrow, and on this we have Fork so that it automatically hits between all of the different mobs to help AoE. We have Electrocute. We have Neural Overload, which is going to help prime or set off our electrocution earlier. And I currently have Induction that also give this skill a higher chance to shock. You could also throw attack speed here. You could throw in that ability that makes it so that you can move faster while attacking by like 40% or something like that. Now, something to note here is Electrocute's actually going to drop down our damage a lot on Lightning Arrow. So if you wanted to, instead of going for Electrocution, you could go for something else here. But I like Electrocution a lot because it paralyzes mobs in place for a while, which can really help with our survivability. And I'm finding we have enough damage output already that I don't really need more damage. What I need is a way to help myself survive. And Electrocution, more often than not, is a great way to help me survive mobs that might have normally killed me. So feel free to play with this if you want. Next up, we have Stormcaller Arrow, and this is going to be our most guaranteed way of shocking enemies. So we have lightning exposure so that anything that we shock with this also gets exposed to lightning to take more damage. We have Overcharge to increase the magnitude of the shock, which basically means they take more damage. And then we have Coursing Current, which is going to give any mobs in a 2.5 meter radius have a 50% chance of also becoming shocked. So it's basically a way to AoE shock enemies. Next up is our Orb of Storms, which is ability that we're using to help trigger our lightning rods here. So on Orb of Storms, we have Overabundance, which is going to allow us to place 2 orbs. And then we have Persistence, which is going to increase the skill effect duration so that they last longer. And then I also have Chain Thrown on here so that you get 1 extra chain off of the orb to just help them damage faster with the lightning rods. I do have Magnetic Salvo still in my lineup. This is a great way if you're dealing with a high HP mob or something that you're not really damaging with your other skills to quickly get a quick burst on. I'll show you real quickly here. When your lightning rods are done, if you hit that Magnetic Salvo button, it's going to shoot and burst a bunch of those rods. So it's a quick way to get some damage output if you have a bunch of rods up and you need to try and burst something down. So on this, we have Inevitable Critical, Super Critical, and Hourglass, which basically are going to increase our chance of getting critical, greatly increase the amount of damage we do with a critical, and then I'll just do more damage off the base. However, this does add quite a bit of cooldown time, so just keep in mind this isn't something that you can spam. I do have Escape Shot in the lineup. I don't use it too often, unfortunately, just because of how often, whenever I try to use it, it doesn't really help too much because there's like a wall or something behind me. But if you are in this tricky situation, sometimes this could possibly get you out of it to save your life. For instance, if you're surrounded by mobs and you know that you're not going to be able to kill them quick enough, you could tap this to hopefully get out of the surrounding. And on this, we have Martial Tempo to increase the attack speed, Holy Descent so that when we land, we can heal ourselves in a little bit of an area, and Frost Nexus just to help if we do freeze an enemy to lay down some frost ground. Next up is Cast on Shock. Now, to be honest, I've been playing around a lot with this. I like it and I dislike it at the same time. It can really eat up our mana at times, sometimes when we don't want to, specifically on bosses, because this triggers a lot more often on bosses now than it does on normal mobs after they did some patch changes to it. And there's a lot of different things you can do with Cast on Shock. So currently I have Ball Lightning, Conductivity, and Impetus thrown on here. And what this does is basically anytime we build up enough energy on this Cast on Shock by shocking enemies, it's going to automatically use these spells. On a boss, it's going to trigger a lot. So it's going to throw out a bunch of Ball Lightnings, a bunch of Conductivities. This is basically a lazy man option here. So spells that you want to be casting maybe, but you don't want to constantly having to be pushing a button, you could throw on here. So you could also, you know, put something on like Voltaic Mark here. You could swap out Ball Lightning for something like Orb of Storms, or maybe Arc, I think, is another ability that could set out lightning beams. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But you could play with a lot of different skills inside of the Cast on Shock. Now, if you don't have enough spirit to get this, I think Wind Dancer and Herald of Thunder are more important. So potentially you could just ignore this completely. I have kind of been playing with this on and off and switching between using it and not using it. So just wanted to point it out. This is one of the items that your skills that you could add to your repertoire if you're looking for it. Then Wind Dancer is a great way to help our survivability. I do have quality put on this so we get an extra stage, which increases even more evasion. On this, I have Blind, Maim, and Clarity to help us with our mana regen. And then we have the good old Herald of Thunder. And on this, I have Innervate. So if we do happen to kill a mob, we can boost all of our lightning damage for 35%. You could throw this on one of your other attack skills too if you want to swap this out somewhere into them. I also have Precision to help with accuracy, just because as we're getting to higher level maps, I've noticed that some of our long arrows miss sometimes, so this will just help those hit a little bit more. And then I also just have Culling Strike. There's a bunch of other random skills that you could look at throwing on either Herald or Wind Dancer, so go ahead and take a look at those. For instance, I think Cannibalism is one if you have enough spirit. It costs 15 spirit, I think. Can help you get some health regen and stuff like that. So obviously feel free to take a look at all the different skill gems that are out there and support gems and swap out things wherever you think are necessary. For instance, something I might play around with here is instead of doing Electrocution on my lightning arrow, even perhaps maybe once I get the next slot unlocked, I might look at moving some of these shock abilities onto my lightning arrow, because I've noticed sometimes in tricky situations when I'm really dealing with a lot of mobs and they're like high level, so like if I'm doing breaches or ritual altars, I don't always have time to shoot lightning arrows and electrocute arrows out. And the electrocute arrows, or sorry, stormcaller arrows, take some time to activate the shock effect. So I'm wondering if I can get away with getting all of that under just lightning arrows. So that's something I'm going to play with once I'm able to unlock this next ability here. Because I do still really want to have electrocution, just because I said it, like, it helps with the survivability a lot. But I am noticing that as we deal with harder and harder situations, being able to shoot both of these arrows is really time consuming. And I feel like I've died several times because of needing to use both these different types of arrows. So just something to keep in mind there. One other skill gem I wanted to kind of show off here, because it has a lot of potential of changing up the build, is the Elemental Invocation. And the way that this is going to work is basically anytime with our build that we're shocking an enemy, it's going to start building up energy in this gem. And then this gem is going to spend the energy that we stored up in order to cast spells that we put on it. So for instance, if I put Ball Lightning in here, and then I have energy retention to help possibly not make as much energy lost when we cast it, and then maximum energy to also increase the amount of energy that we store up in this gem. Let's go start building energy. So you can see right now it's grayed out because we don't have any energy built up on it. But as we start to shock enemies as we play through our map here, once we build up enough energy in, and you can see here in the top left, right now we have 21%, 24%. It's going to keep getting higher and higher. You can see now we can cast it twice. So let me get some more built up here just to make it more obvious what's happening when we cast this. I just realized I spammed my life pots a little too much in the fire ground effects here, so I'm losing my life pots. But now we have it. Okay, so we have 3 casts built up. So watch what happens when I push it now. It just cast Ball Lightning 3 times. So this is a pretty interesting skill gem that we could bring into this build to look at potentially manually casting skills whenever we want and being able to spam cast them. So when this gets built up to 100%, we could cast quite a few copies of whatever spells that we want to. So this could be a great way to take out rares quickly, bosses quickly. Because there is no cast time when you're using this, also, like, if we wanted, because our Orb of Storms takes so long to cast and it slows us down so much when we cast it, we could potentially look at moving our Orb of Storms onto Elemental Invocation, because when we cast this, there's 0 cast time. You can see it's instant, so it doesn't slow us down. It instantly casts it. The only downside is if we haven't built up enough shock in order to cast yet, and we need to cast Orb of Storms, we wouldn't be able to cast it. So I just wanted to bring up and show that this Elemental Invocation Gem is another gem that we could look at using. You could use it in place of your Cast a Shock, or if you have enough Spirit, you could do something like replace your Magnetic Salvo or your Escape Shot. Unfortunately, we can't trigger any of our attacks with this. We can only trigger spells with this, so you will have to look at some of the lightning spells and stuff under some of the other classes. You're not going to be able to cast any of your lightning skill gems that you would normally find on the ranger with that, but I think it's a pretty fun and cool gem to play with, so feel free to experiment with this, you guys. Alright, and then let's take a look at the skill tree here. First and foremost, I'll point out, I think going for Windward and Gathering Winds first for your first 2 ascendancies is more important than going for more damage. We already have lots of damage with this build, to be honest. We need more survivability, so I think going for Windward first with your ascendancies is smarter. Now, as far as going for your next 2, I think Far Shots and then Endless Munitions is probably going to be the play. I constantly switch back between going for Far Shot and Near Shot here. I think Near Shot is what the other variation is called, where you do more damage close range. It's hard to tell. Sometimes I'm really close to mobs, always fighting them close, and other times I'm really far away, fighting them far away. I feel like Near Shot probably is going to be more beneficial in the long term, just because on this game it seems like the mobs tend to always be getting in close by themselves. So I'll probably respec back into the close variation of this skill. But that's it for ascendancies. Now, for moving down the tree, I went down the evasion route here to help with survivability, because like I said, survivability is our biggest deterrence right now on the build. We get tons of damage naturally through all of our other stuff. So move down the skill tree here, and I pick up points of intelligence wherever I feel necessary in order to meet the requirement I need in order to run my different gems. So that's why you'll sometimes see intelligence here. Because I have a really good quiver, I threw some points into master fletching here, and in fact, I'll probably throw these points on here as well, just because I get a huge damage boost off of all of these, because I do have such a good quiver. Moving down the tree here, we go up to Surging Currents to give us lightning resistance penetration. And let me just show you real quickly right here. On our lightning damage penetration, I am currently at 100% lightning damage, or lightning resistance penetration, which means I'm going to penetrate all of the enemy's lightning resistances. I don't know if there's hidden factors that can deter or lower this skill or this rating, but right now I am actually hitting 100% thanks to some of my gems and stuff like that, or jewels. So we're going to move up here and take this. We're going to move over here to take Harness the Elements. We'll move up further on the board here to take General Electric to help with our shocks, and then Harmonic Generator. Then we're going to come back down here. You'll see I took freedom of movement here to help increase evasion. You can also go to escape velocity here to get at move speed and more evasion here. We're going to continue moving down the board over here. We get frazzled. And here I have a jewel inserted to give me increased attack speed, projectile damage. Obviously, this isn't the best jewel. I could get a better jewel that actually has 4 stats on it. That would help more accuracy rating, and the duration of damaging elements doesn't really help me that much with this build, but that's what I have, so that's what's in there. Then we move up to Electrocution here. If you're not actually using Electrocution on your skill gems because you feel like you don't like it, you can move on from this and put those points in somewhere else. Coming Calamity is really helpful since we have Herald of Thunder always active. This is a huge boost to our lightning damage. We do grab Acrobatics. This is going to be our best survivability skill that we can pick up. However, I will note, don't grab this unless it's going to keep you over 50% evasion after you grab it. I feel like you never want to be under 50% evasion if you can help it. So if picking this up is going to put you below 50% evasion, I would wait to grab it until you have enough evasion on your gear in order to stay over 50%. And the reason that it happens is because you can see here on this skill, it gives you 70% less evasion rating, which is a huge debuff, but because it adds the evades to everything, or all hits I should say, it helps you more than it hurts you. So that being said, we move over to here, Enhanced Reflexes and Bestial Skin to get more evasion. Bestial Skin is going to be a huge buff to evasion as well, so make sure you get an armor piece that has as much evasion rating on it as you can, so you can boost how much you get from Bestial Skin. We move over here to grab Proficiency to help out with our dex. And then I currently have mana issues, so I did spec into Mental Toughness. If you have enough leech and mana coming off of your other gear and skills, then you don't feel like you don't need more upkeep, you don't have to spec into this. You could put those points elsewhere. Another place you could go is here into Falcon Technique to get more increased attack speed. Or even down here, there's another attack speed set right down here and acceleration. So you could go that way with those points. We do move up the tree here to get Exposed to the Storm. This is once again going to give us damage penetration to lightning resistance. This is helping me hit that 100%. And it's going to increase our critical hit chance against lightnings that are exposed, as well as getting this huge 15% more maximum lightning damage. This is a great one to pick up with our lightning rod. So I did move up the tree to grab these lightning skills here. Now another place there is lightning abilities is down here. Currently we are using Coursing Current on our Stormcaller arrow in order to potentially spread shocks to other units. Once I look at maybe moving my shocks to lightning arrow, a great skill to pick up here would be spreading shocks, because this is naturally going to be able to spread any shock to a nearby enemy. I feel like it warrants enough specs to come down here, especially since we get increased lightning damage on our way there. So otherwise you could potentially put this as on your amulet if you feel like it's not worth spending the points to come down here and get this. So spreading shocks, you can see there you need 1 guilt and 2 disgusts in order to get that on your amulet to help spread the shocks. Thunderstruck I may or may not go for. I'm not sure. It's going to depend on how it feels at the time. Basically, it makes it easier to shock or electrocute, vice versa on which ability isn't currently on the enemy. So that's another place you can spec into with this board. So let's take a look. I went down over on Catalyst here to make our way down. We got another jewel here. This one I have damage penetration to lightning resistance on. I have more mana leech, increased damage with bows, and you can see, unfortunately, attack speed with quarter staves doesn't help me out. Another great evasion set right here. Careful consideration and escape strategy. I feel like if you're going to pick this up, you want to pick both of these up at once, just because they have positives and negatives to them at the same time. So they'll increase evasion to basically based if you've been hit or you haven't been hit. So picking up only one or the other, I feel like may be detrimental. So it kind of helps to have both at the same time. Then we move down here. I do pick up Embolden Avatar just simply because it's only 1 point. If you feel like it's not worth the 25% increased chance to shock or electrocute, you could bypass this one. This one's not that important, but just because it's one away, I felt like grabbing it. And then the whole main reason we spec down here is in order to pick up Lightning Rod, which is going to get, basically our lightning damage is going to have two different, it's going to get red twice. And whichever one rolls higher is going to be the one it picks to do the damage. So for instance, let's say our lightning damage has the possibility of doing between 1 to 10 damage. One roll might be 2 damage. The other roll is going to be 8 damage. So it's going to say, okay, let's do 8 damage, not 2 damage. So that's basically what this point is going to go towards. And then we also pick up Flash Storm. Some of the other things you can grab down here if you have the points, because you're not speccing to other places, is you could go down to Giant Slayer here to do more damage against rare and unique enemies. You can see here it's a 25% damage boost against them. You get more accuracy, and you have a greater chance of inflicting ailments against them. So if you're looking for more boss or being able to deal more damage to rare units, you could hop on down to there. You could also hop over to here to go for Sand in the Eyes to increase your attack speed. And this is going to add in a natural ability or chance to blind enemies with your attacks. So that could also be helpful for survivability. It's to help them miss attacks. I may or may not spec into those. Kind of depends on how I'm feeling with where I'm going with this. But yeah, that's currently where we're spec'd into. Now I have looked at a lot of different skills on what we could anoint. Some of those things are, I think there is a... Hold on a second here. I got to do a quick search. So here, there is an ability that adds 5% increased attack and cast speed and 25% increased physical damage. This can potentially be helpful because most of our lightning skills we're converting our physical into electrical. So this is going to help give you 25% damage boost and attack speed. It is a little expensive on the anointments that it costs because it's going to cost this isolation anointment, which is one of the highest ones that you can get. Currently on my amulet, I have Sharpened Claw spec'd because it's a pretty cheap one to get actually. It's going to cost 1 ire and 2 greed, and it's just a 25% overall attack damage boost. Another anointment I'm going to look at possibly here is the Lightning Quick, which gives us 14% increased lightning damage and also increase our attack and cast speed with lightning skills. So it's a pretty good damage buff here. You can see here though, it's another one that's pretty expensive. It costs 2 fears and an isolation. So those are some of the anointments that I've looked at for skills. There's a number of other ones here, you know, like here's another 25% increased physical damage that could help. So there's tons of different anointments that you could look at. Those are the ones I've kind of been eyeing up so far. But obviously, feel free to make changes wherever you feel necessary to your build. Like I said, there's tons of great things that you could spec into. For instance, Feathered Fletching if you have a lot of projectile speed and stuff like that. So obviously play with the board however you feel necessary. But this is currently where I'm at. And so far, I have been able to do tier 12s with no issue. In fact, I actually went to do my last Ascendancy and I was creaming the boss. However, I didn't realize there was a mechanic that, well, I should say the mechanic where the hourglasses pop up and you have to run around and grab all their hourglasses. I didn't understand the mechanic right away when I started it. I realized too late what it was and I missed one of the other glasses. And if you don't do it in time, you get instant one-shotted. So I'm pretty sure I would have my last Ascendancy if I had looked that up ahead of time, but I wanted to go in blind. So it is capable of handling at least the last Ascendancy as well. So this build has a lot of capabilities. All right, I figured I'd show you guys my gear real quick, just to kind of show where I'm currently at. And right now I'm at, if you can see here on my thing, I'm doing tier 12 maps mainly, looking to upgrade those. And I haven't noticed too much trouble. I do die every once in a while to some sort of explosion of some kind. I think it's usually chaos damage that's the culprit. I'm still working on getting my chaos damage up. Something I will note, everything I'm using is self-found right now. I have not bought anything off the market to use, and I have not sold anything on the market to like spam build on me right now. So if you guys are using the marketplace currently, I'm sure you could get a lot better gear than what I currently have, just because it's so much easier to get it from other people than it is to try and find it yourself. But with that being said, this is my current bow. And what we're going to want to look for on our bow is as much physical damage that we can. And this means getting the % increased physical damage and looking to get the plus adds physical damage to attack. Lightning damage is also good, but I believe physical damage is going to be the best. And the reason we're doing a dual string bow is because the bow attacks fire an additional arrow implicit is great for this build because it's going to shoot an additional lightning rod. And you can see on mine, I actually have it again further down on the explicit mods. I believe this is a suffix mod. Yep. So right here, this suffix mod. And you might even be able to get it to have more than additional arrow. I'm not really sure. Attack speed is going to be good. Elemental damage with attacks is going to be okay as well. And then also if you can manage to get mana leech, so gain mana from kills, or even better, gain mana from physical attack, that's going to help with your mana upkeep. So that's another great suffix to look for there. But yeah, so this is my current build, and I'll show you real quick. This is the bow I was using before. So it's not quite as good as this one, but it did have physical damage. It had adds physical, adds lightning, it had leeched mana. It was another great bow for the build, but this one just got me a lot more damage output thanks to the extra arrows and to that higher increased physical damage. Among my rings and my amulets right now, I'm mainly looking for life if I can. Elemental resistances are the big one for me, so trying to get elemental resistances capped. Another thing you can look for here for damage-wise is to once again get the physical damage added to attacks. That's going to help with it as well. And then I also am looking for rarity, just because I know right now currently getting your rarity find up helps you find items quite a bit. Things like getting intelligence or dexterity can also be good, because that's going to help meet some of the requirements that you need to run higher gear, or to possibly get some of the gem skills that you might need, like the cast on shock or stuff like that, because it's kind of hard to get intelligence without having on your gear sometimes. For the gloves, I currently have add lightning damage to attack, max life we're looking for again, chaos resistance. We're looking for, once again, leeches for life, leeches for mana. On my belt, this is mainly a resistance stat for me right now. You're going to want to look for high life on here. You can see I have a lot of low life rolls right now. You're going to want to look for 100 plus life on as much gear as you can get. Right now, my life is only at 1400, which is pretty low for tier 12 maps, and I think that's quite often getting me killed, so. On boots, same thing. Movement speed's always nice. If you want to go for more survivability, you can sacrifice movement speed to get other stats, but right now, I'm mainly just using this for resistances, movement speed. Look for increasing evasion on stuff as well. Having more evasion means more survivability. I am going to possibly look at, in the future, maybe going evasion energy shield hybrid, because I know there's some skills and stuff like that that can help keep your energy shield up. It's just another way of basically stacking life. So I may switch over to dexterity int build with that. Our quiver, this I found to be the best quiver at the moment that I can get. It's great because the implicit is increased attack speed, which is going to help us get more attacks out. On this, you're going to want to look for lightning damage to attacks, physical damage to attacks, increased damage with bow skills, more attack speed. If you end up getting projectile speed, something I don't currently have myself spec'd into, but projectile speed can also help you get more damage if you get feathered fletching, which basically makes any projectile stuff also increase damage. So you could also go potentially for a projectile speed bow if you want to look to go for that route. My helmet here, you can see, is mainly just all resistances at the moment to help me max those out. And you can see I've got runes thrown in on all of my gear to help out with my resistances as well. If you're having trouble getting slots or help getting your resistances up, you could always try and throw a chaos orbs onto your gear, like for instance on like I did on my helmet, to get an extra slot to throw in another rune to get plus resistances there. For my amulet, I'm currently mainly using this for resistances. You could also look for increased evasion rating. You could look for, I believe there's plus all gems or plus levels to projectile gems and stuff like that. I believe there should be that if you want to look for plus projectile or plus skill level to gems. But that's currently all of the gear that I have equipped, and then I just have a chaos charm here.